Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unique Peace. I am Janice. I am a Reiki Master Teacher and medium here on Long Island, New York, and I'm so excited. Today, I have my first repeat guest, Brian Orlando, coming on. He is a DJ morning host. He is a psychic medium and an author. So, we're going to discuss how life has changed in the last 2 years and how his definition of peace has changed in the last 2 years. So, everybody, welcome Brian back to the show.
What's going on, Jan? It's good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you? How have things been?
Well, I could firmly say that the first thing that has changed since we last talked is I was not an author back then, and the book was only written a couple of months ago, so this is all brand new to me.
Yes. And we're going to get to that in a minute. I want to know what brought the book about. We're talking about Rock and Soul Tarot. And how did this come into play? How did this come into being?
It was written in 2.5 weeks. I don't really know what I was thinking before I put pen to paper. I know that a few years ago I started teaching tarot, and I started teaching tarot because I didn't understand anything that was taught to me about tarot in any book, in any video. It just seemed all so foreign. And even though I grew up with a tarot card reading mother and a psychic medium, her way of doing things was very conventional. And every time she tried to explain it, it was wah, 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 wah. And I started, and we don't listen to our parents anyway. So
No.
I
We
started to
don't. Let's
teach a
be honest.
class. Yeah. The class was based on the only language that I know well, and that's music. I'm a radio DJ. I've been a music enthusiast since I was a little baby. It's the only thing that's ever made sense. So I started teaching this class to explain things the way it makes sense to me. And we still have so much fun in class. I thought, what if I was able to take class on the road somehow? What if I was able to make the class accessible to everybody? And that's why I wrote the book.
Going back to class for just a second, because I do take class. My question is, how, class was clearly a catalyst.
Yeah.
So we'll go back a couple of steps before the book. What was the catalyst for class?
So there was a gentleman who owned a music store, and he had asked me for a little bit of help to promote the opening of his store. And it was right near where class is now. And just getting the word out that it was a place to be, because it wasn't just a record store. He had metaphysical elements, he sold crystals, he sold tarot cards. So as a idea to help promote him, because he said, we have a whole back room, what do you think we could do? I said, maybe we could do some kind of class. And class really started just as a idea to help somebody with their business. The room was very nice, but it also got too small. So he wound up doing some other things. Business started working out for him. So we moved class to where it is now at Moonspell Garden, a much bigger room, uh, actual metaphysical shop. There's a crystal shop up front. So I didn't think class was going to go much further than just a couple of lessons to help this guy out and bring foot traffic into his store. But a funny thing started happening. More people started showing up. It became more of a social gathering. We learned every day. I started learning from you, from the students. Everybody started contributing their own music and ideas as to what the cards might be. And then we began doing these metaphysical psychic medium readings. Everybody's bringing in their pictures of deceased loved ones, or items, belongings to loved ones, and it just evolved into this entire thing, and all from an idea to promote a local business.
And that has worked out for both. that business and Moonspell
Yeah.
and you.
It's been a lot of fun. The students aren't just people that come in and join me on Wednesdays anymore. They're family. Like the other day, my car broke down, and that's a wacky metaphysical story in itself, which I'll get into later. But my battery pretty much exploded. There's gunk all over it that looked like an alien life form, and the entire class was out there. We jumped the car. Emily had the cables. Everybody stood around. Maria followed me home. It's more than just a place where people go for an hour and a half. It truly is like family dinner.
And with that, so that that class, the Rock and Soul Tarot class, has morphed into the Rock and Soul Tarot book. But I'm sure it's changed your perspective on a few things, including peace. Has it changed your definition of peace?
You know, before I got into tarot at all, I didn't have a definition of peace because I didn't think I necessarily deserved it. I lived a life, made some mistakes, thought that peace was just a concept that was beyond my grasp. When I started getting into tarot in the first place, I started to realize quickly that all of the mistakes that I've made were made by everybody else. We might have called them different things, we might have looked at it through a different lens, but we all screw up quite a bit. And we're all looking for some sort of, at least in theory, with metaphysical guidance, some sort of idea to help us make better decisions so we don't keep falling into these patterns and making the same mistakes. And that's all peace was to me at the time. Since I started to evolve from this book, the book's been out 2 months now, 3 months, and things are happening organically. More readings are coming in, more book signings are coming in. I'm meeting more people who are like me, look like you, tattoos, rockers. My definition of peace now is having a world where not only do I feel better about fitting in and feel like I can fit in, but I don't feel like I'm running out of time anymore. I don't feel like every mistake that I make is going to cause a catastrophic event that ruins my entire life. I think peace for me right now is simply being able to make mistakes and not it be the end of the world. That's peace.
And that's true peace for 90% of the planet, I'm sure. I'm sure that 90% of the planet would agree with you. And having that definition of peace now having an idea of what your definition of peace is, how does that help you bring peace into your life? What do you do to bring and cultivate peace?
I'm not beating myself up over every mistake anymore. So there's more time to think about what I need to do in order to make my life better. Where in the past, 90% of my day was spent on, how am I going to get revenge? How am I going to win this battle? How am I going to make sure that no one ever messes with me again? And then with this evolution, if you want to call it that, but with a lot of growing up that I've done in the last couple of years, I feel like it helps me manage my time better. It helps me make time for meditation, for thinking about what's next, not about what's behind me.
In focusing on the present and somewhat in the future, do you find it's putting the past in the past, letting sleeping dogs lie, as they say? It's just easier to focus on the now.
I think it's always easier to focus on the past because we've been, I think it takes some I think it takes some work. And it's funny because to me, peace is a fight. And that might sound contradictory, but we have to fight to maintain and obtain and maintain peace. It's easy to me to just think about what's already happened because you already have a picture of it in your mind. It's there. It's somewhat tangible. The future is still a vision. You have to create it in your head. So I think it's much easier to focus on the past, but it's not healthy. And I think once you realize that you're focusing on the future, pursuing your peace, you realize being healthy is not only important, but it's rewarding. And the feeling that I get now when I'm looking forward instead of backwards is not just a more peaceful feeling, but a rewarding feeling, a enlightened feeling, because it's like, okay, this is how things are supposed to be. We're supposed to be looking forward to tomorrow, not waking up thinking about yesterday.
Yeah. And perpetuating yesterday, because that only leads to more of the same.
Yep.
And when you look at your definition of peace and how you bring peace into your life, how does that help you bring peace into others' lives? How does that help you help others find peace? I
I
mean,
think,
the class, when we're all at class, that's very peaceful. That's family. That's tight knit, but welcoming. And then you have the other aspects of life where somebody you meet at the gas station, somebody you meet at the on the side of the you have lots of funny stories about how life has come at you. And you stayed relatively calm now than you would have maybe 2 years ago and maybe help somebody in that moment now.
oh, I think I bring more peace to the world because I'm not yelling as much. I mean, I'm loud, I'm Italian, I have a temper. I know I have a temper. And I think being able to temper that, I think being able to control my emotions is definitely helping my mirror. Like if I'm not looking as angry, I'm not inviting as much anger into me. But I also have become less suspicious. You know, as a radio DJ, I live in this very pseudo celebrity world. I call myself a Z-list celebrity. I mean, outside of Long Island, nobody would recognize me, but here, depending on what your music taste is, you might know who I am through Instagram, through Facebook. And in the past, I never accepted anyone even complimenting me because I just assumed they wanted something. I just assumed if the Foo Fighters were playing, they needed tickets or there was something going on at the Paramount. And I think since I've become more peaceful with myself, uh, my demeanor has changed to the point where I'm attracting more people in who are less ambitious about what I could do for them and more curious about how we can work together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people like that who aren't pseudo famous or actually famous. It's they've been people get very jaded.
Yeah.
You experience enough heartache or trauma and people are like, I don't trust you. What do you want? They're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think that's true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it's just working through that, I think, would be very interesting.
I
Um,
mean, listen, I realize that we attract what we put out. And if I was putting out suspicious vibes for all these years, I was getting back suspicious behavior and suspicious situations where now I'm calmer about things. I'm a little less angry and I'm a little less apprehensive. So I feel like my energy's better, which means I'm being rewarded with the better energy that's out there in the world.
and it feels good.
Feels great.
And speaking of putting that out there and what you're receiving back, we go back to the book for a moment. And the book is really gaining some traction. So how do you feel about that? It's gaining some traction. People are starting to know you. They're starting to know you outside of Long Island.
I mean, being known outside of radio is really rewarding, exciting, something I never really thought about. Didn't think that I needed, but being known as an author in certain circles has been mind blowing. And yeah, the book is now in 7 states, 3 continents, and 11 stores on the island, I believe. So it's gaining traction in a way where I just never thought I would be able to reach. I mean, I'm a radio DJ. I've been a radio DJ for 20 years. Even you introducing me as an author just sounded weird, fun, exciting, but weird. So it gives me a chance to be more than Orlando the DJ, Brian Orlando the author, Brian Orlando the psychic medium. I don't think anybody ever really even considered myself a medium or considered me a medium first until the book came out. Now it's, oh, he's a psychic. He wrote a book. It was always this radio DJ, and he happens to talk to dead people.
And with that shift, that was, from my understanding, quite an interesting shift. There was a lot of resistance in that shift.
Since I was 3 years old, again, you don't want to listen to your parents. And I grew up in a metaphysical world. My mother's been reading cards to help put food on the table since I was a baby. My parents got divorced in 1981. I was 2.5 years old. My mother has always been a professional psychic in a time when it wasn't necessarily regarded the way it is today. Now it seems like there's a psychic on every corner. Back then, you were still looked at as if it was 1600 Salem. You were still looked at it like this is an evil thing. So I had plenty of reasons, both personal and societal, to hate everything about this. So I resisted until I was 41 years old. And then after working with a couple of psychic mediums on the radio, after more and more incidents that were throwing a monkey wrench in everything I was trying to do, and me having less and less strength to call them coincidence, I finally broke down. It was, and it's in the book, but for a few months after my grandmother passed away, who was one of the most impactful people in my entire life. So from the end of November 2019 until September of 2020, I started going through these really radical metamorphoses. My body started to change, ache in different places, different ways. My thoughts weren't the same anymore. I was really having a good year in 2019. And then all of a sudden, after grandma passed, more than just losing her, I just wasn't thinking the same. I was having these emotional breakdowns, and I just kept feeling like there was almost like a foreign substance in me. Like I felt dirty. And then it would go away, come back, go away. In September of 2020, it was still the height of COVID. So Rob, my radio partner, and I came up with this idea to do Zoom interviews with musicians. And it was a good alternative to concerts, and we didn't have any concert tickets to give away. So we gave away these Zoom keys, and you could meet your favorite musicians virtually. And we happened to do one with Kevin Martin from Candlebox, who's not only one of my closest friends, but like a mentor and somebody who's pulled my fat out of the fire many times. So I was excited. Except on this particular day, I was miserable and I could not tell you why. I cannot figure it out. I knew that I felt worthless. I felt I wasn't good enough. I kept thinking to myself, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And yet, consciously, I'm aware that these are not my thoughts. I'm like, I don't understand this. I know I'm better than this. What is going on? 5 minutes before the interview, my computer decides it doesn't want to work. So now, like, nothing's going right. So I run next door to get my landlord's computer. And right as I go to grab it, she breaks down hysterically. And before I can even ask, she said, I just got turned down for a promotion. They went with somebody who hasn't even been here for a year. I feel worthless. I feel, and then she started to tell me word for word, verbatim, what I was feeling. So I grabbed the computer. I did the interview. Kevin was a riot and charming as always. And then as soon as I said goodbye, I picked up the phone and I called my mother and I said, "You got to give me a deck of cards. I'm coming down to see you." And I thought the first words out of her mouth were going to be, "I told you so." They were, "Are you okay? When do you want to come?" And then "I told you so." So she waited three. Talk about peace. But
So that had to have been jarring. You're like
yeah,
resisting, 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 and then you're just like, I can't do this anymore because it's coming whether I want it to or not. And that's kind of when you broke down. Not like broke down, but that's when it all was like, I can't fight it anymore, it seems like.
yes. And the entire time I was on that plane, there was perhaps my first sense of peace in years because as scary as it was going to be, and as much as I knew that I was reaching for something that I absolutely despised, I also knew that I could not go on like this anymore. And it's in the book, and I'm trying to think because timelines can get mixed up. I'm trying to think if it was right before or right after, but there was another incident just like feeling the energy of my landlord where I felt like I lost everything. I felt, and I actually said out loud, I was pulling into Lakeland Park and I said, "Why do I feel like I have nothing?" At that moment, the phone rang and my friend called me to tell me his house burned down with everything inside it. And I don't know, again, I think it was after I got the cards, but it was almost like this affirmation that you need to do this. And then obviously I stood on the phone with my friend and we talked, but it was like, no, that wasn't a fluke. This is really happening. You need to pursue this.
And as you've pursued it, have you found yourself embracing it a bit, knowing that it's hard as a medium, somebody as an empath as well. I mean, since childhood myself, and as a medium, knowing that the two work very well in tandem, at some point you have to embrace it. Whether you like it or not, acceptance would be the best word, I guess. You don't have to embrace it, but you do have to accept it.
To be honest with you, I accepted it when I started teaching you guys. When the class started to become more of a family, and every week the faces became more and more familiar, and we wound up with our core crew that comes every week or at least three times a month. I started to accept the fact that this was not only bigger than me, but uh, gave me a bigger sense of purpose. I mean, I don't understand, even in radio, why anybody would take the time to hear what I have to say. But I'm also very grateful that they do because it pays the bills. In this, it's much more voluntary, and you guys have come in to show me how much you believe in what I have to say about this and how I look at it, and that gives me a complete sense of acceptance to it because in this class there are no rules, and in this class there's no structure onto how to read. And if I can lead a army of psychics that can do this without living in these ridiculous cliched walls of the old school way of doing things, then I absolutely accept it. Like that's something, there's a purpose that I can wholeheartedly embrace, not rebelling, but rewriting the rules or at least shattering them.
Yes, there are a lot of people who are very gifted that are intimidated because you have the super new age or you have the super old school. But there is a normal.
Look, we live in this world where there are tons of cliches, and even in the word peace, going back towards being a child, my father would turn his nose and just rip apart the music that I listened to, and he called it noise. And granted, when he was listening to my Pantera records, he was not finding peace. And I don't think there's anybody,
You can't.
who's gonna my father's age, your father's age, is gonna hear Anthrax or hear Pantera and think, "Oh my God, Cemetery Gates, it's so peaceful." But it's it was peaceful to me. Anthrax is peaceful to you. It's comforting. It's comforting not in its sound, but in its familiarity, in its memory, and in its encouragement. So I teach tarot in a way that's very similar. It's not about what the book tells you the card means, it's what you're feeling off the card at the moment. Because happiness is different for you than it is to me. An introvert will find happiness in an empty room, an extrovert will find misery in it.
Yeah.
So just the picture of the empty room is not enough to give you the story of what the card's supposed to mean. You have to feel it.
I go back to a moment when you would ask me because I've never felt the cards spoke to me. I've had several decks. They're very pretty. They're very, I love the artwork. They just didn't do anything for me. I think it goes back to something an aunt said to me many, many years ago. And at the same time, I was always trying to read for myself. I've learned for me personally, that's not the best idea. However, you asked me in class when the cards started to make sense for me. And it's not so much that they started to make sense, it's that they started to mirror the things I was telling the person I was reading for. And so class has been beneficial for me in that respect of like, okay, it helps me tell the other person the story. And it validates not only to me, but to the other person. Because sometimes people want that tool. They come to a psychic medium or a tarot reader and they expect to see cards. I don't read that way, but if that makes them feel better,
Yeah.
I've learned that the whatever I'm saying is illustrated nicely in the cards.
I think that's why my mother never stopped reading with them. And I think that it is just a more comforting way to do it when you're pulling names of people who haven't been on this planet in 30 years and you're pulling ideas out of people's heads that they've never relayed to another human being. It just seems easier to understand when there's cards on the table and a picture that you can point to and say, "This is why I said that."
Yes. And I think that that also brings another person peace. It's like, oh, it was said in the cards.
Right.
Um, and that's great if that's what helps bring them peace. And we know that we can't bring them peace as a psychic medium. Only that person can find peace for themselves. Because what again, like happiness, how I find peace might not be how you find peace.
I don't remember if it was in class or if I brought the story to class, but one of the students had asked me to talk to them, sit with them, and to see how they read. So she read me and she was phenomenal. And in the end, I said, "Okay, what did you think you did for me in that reading?" And she said, "Well, I hope I brought you closure. Isn't that what a psychic does?" And that's not our job because, again, closure, just like the word peace, just like any other word, means something different to everybody. We're here to give you information that perhaps will allow you to see closure. We're here to give you information that will hopefully help you make better decisions, which will bring you closure to whatever the problem is in your life. We're messengers. We're not doctors. We're sort of amateur therapists, but that's only because we are feeling, what somebody's going through. But we could never be the reason somebody has peace. We can never be the reason somebody has closure. We can only be the reason why somebody finally chose to get it on their own.
Yes. And a lot of people who come for readings are seeking either closure or peace
Right,
or answers, because
right.
sometimes things are set. And do you find doing this work brings you peace? Not necessarily them, but you peace, giving
Yeah.
messages.
I mean, if you gave a really good reading, you should be exhausted by the end of it. And, you know, you'll probably find peace by sleeping for a good hour afterwards. But I think that coming from a lifestyle where I lived hard, always seek the party, didn't necessarily make decisions that put others' needs first. Being able to be a part of somebody else's journey to find that peace helps me find my own. I mean, the situations that come up in a reading could be heavy. The situations that come up in a reading could be taboo. And in the end, if there's one tear shed in a forward motion of this is the last tear I'm going to waste on this subject, then I've found peace in helping somebody else. And I think throughout all of the charity events that we've done together, all of the readings that we've done in class, I've always walked out with a sense of purpose, and that purpose has brought me peace.
And has this work changed you?
100%. 100%. I am nowhere near as cynical, as angry, as bitter. You know what? One of the biggest lessons that I've learned throughout life is that I'm not special. Nobody's special. You hear it all the time. People will always try to separate themselves from a group or from a situation by saying, you don't get it. You don't know what I went through. And to be honest with you, that's a load of crap because we've all been through it. We've all been through profound loss and profound guilt and shame and all of it. It may not look exactly like the person who's denying that you understand had gone through, but we've all gone through it. And to me, the most humbling and eye opening part of this work is reading other people and just hearing my own situations, my own experiences get explained through somebody else, through, out of somebody else's mouth. It's like, I've been through that. Oh, yeah, I've been through that. And you don't acknowledge it during a reading, but you realize very quickly we're not special. We've all been through it, and we could all probably learn from each other if we just shut up and listened instead of getting defensive and trying to act like everything that we've ever done is so unique.
That is profound in that we all want to be special and we all want to be unique.
Yeah.
And that's probably why we all get defensive.
Look, the only thing that makes any of us special to me is what we do with the situations that we're handed. We've all gone through it, but how did you handle it? What do you do with it? We take what we have discovered about ourselves and we use it to help other people. I think that's not just peaceful, not just profound, but admirable. Anybody that wants to help other people in any way is admirable. You put on a badge because you want to help people. That's admirable. You become a doctor because you want to heal people. That's admirable.
And with with that knowledge, armed with that knowledge, what's in your toolbox? What do you pull out? You've got somebody who comes up to you, they're frazzled, they're out of sorts, they're like ready to cry. What's something that you can pull out like really quickly and say, hey, let's take a minute?
The one thing that all of us search for every day is connection. Without connection, everything that we try to do in life falls flat. The college football coach needs to connect with his rookie star athlete to get that athlete to believe in the program so that he does sit for a year and learns and buys into it. The hungry salesperson needs to connect with the potential client so that that client believes in the product and wants to know more about it. If somebody's frazzled and somebody comes to you, they're not going to listen to a word you say unless they can trust you. And to me, the easiest way to gain that trust is to connect with them. So the thing that I have in my toolbox more than any metaphysical tool is my ability to have conversations, my ability to start a conversation with anybody. So while somebody is frazzled and seeking help, I'm looking for a way to connect to them. Could be the band t-shirt, could be their shoes, could be something in the accent where I recognized it from a part of the country where I've been. Whatever it is, once you establish that connection, everything else becomes easier and you'll be able to get somebody to trust you.
Yeah, trust is key, especially in this job. So that is very key. And on that note, is there anything on the subject of peace that you would like to share with everybody listening today?
Yeah, don't beat yourself up over the days when you don't feel it because peace has become a word to me like gratitude in the metaphysical world that just gets thrown around. And that's why I love your podcast because it puts peace in a very relatable and believable light. Because you hear all these people all the time, well, no one's getting in my peace. And they just repeat the word like it's a mantra. Meanwhile, the most miserable people in the world. Like peace isn't something that once you reach a certain level, you'll have it perpetually. Again, peace is something you have to fight for every single day. There is nobody in the world that cannot take your peace. You hear it all the time. They can't take my peace. BS. A guy who cuts you off in traffic and then goes 40 miles an hour in front of you in the left lane is taking your peace. It's to me, it's never about proving that your peace is indestructible. It's proving that your peace is easily regained over and over again. We can't walk around with this notion that no one's ever going to break through the impenetrable wall and that our peace is constant. Bull, bull. Every day, something is going to piss us off. I'm a New York Rangers fan. I'm mad every other game. But when the game is over, I realize that I have much more to live for and the peace comes back.
Thank you. I'm a Cubs fan. We watched the last
108 years without peace.
108 years. Yes, it was fun. So, on that note, I know you have a very special event on the 19th today, and that is at the Next Chapter, which is a book store here on Long Island in Huntington. Do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Sometimes the stars align. So in the book, Vinny from Sponge wrote what became the preface. I just had a bunch of musician friends write passages, and I thought that I would have 5 intros. Apparently, you can't do that. I don't know anything about books. So Vinny's intro became the preface. And Vinny from Sponge has become somebody that throughout 12 years of being the morning, 11 years of being the morning show host on the Shark has become one of the radio station's biggest allies. And he's done birthday parties for Angela's house, charity events, you name it, Vinny does it. Suicide prevention, Vinny does it. And he happens to be playing with Everclear and Local H at the Paramount tonight, October 19th. And you'll probably get tickets at ParamountNY.com. But because he's in town and because this bookstore just happens to be down the road, I had asked him if he would mind doing a book signing, a Q&A, and to talk about how music brings us peace, brings us clarity, and brings us hope. And without hesitation, he said, okay. And I think because it's the day of the show, I can let the cat out of the bag that I have another special surprise. And not only before this major concert can you come down to the next chapter and hang out with Vinny, get your book signed. But John Hampson of 9 Days is coming down as well, and he's bringing his guitar.
So,
It's 5 p.m. I have food coming from Dang Barbecue. The room in the next chapter is massive. It's this almost small music hall, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's just one of those things where it happened to work out. I have a guy who wrote in my book that's playing at a venue down the block from a bookstore where I just happened to be doing a signing.
and it's going to be fun.
Oh,
And
it's
I'm looking forward to it myself. I will be there. So,
look, to be able to come have some lunch from Dang Barbecue, get inside one of the best songwriters of a generation. Like Vinny's lyrics, everybody knows Plowed and Molly, but if you really get deep into the Rotting Pinata album and later albums, and I have words to some of Vinny's songs. Feel the music of her breathing, stars rain down from the ceiling. He's one of the greatest songwriters that I've ever had the chance to know. And to be able to pick his brain a little bit, talk about how music has helped, and for free, you could just walk into the book, the next chapter. Do you know the story of the next chapter?
yes, yes, I
Yeah,
do.
I keep saying book review because the manager of the book review, which was the old bookstore in Huntington and the premier place to meet celebrities at book signings, had shut down. So Mallory went down the block and opened up her own bookstore, and that's why it's the next chapter.
Yep. And I'm looking forward. I've never been in there, and I actually need to get random thing. I need to get a book for a baby shower, so I'll be there getting my book signed by
Uh,
Vinny. And
you, you don't think Rock and Soul Tarot's
no,
uh, the right
they'll
book for a baby shower? No.
no.
Uh,
So, thank you, Brian. Thank you for taking time out of your morning. I know you have a busy day coming up, and so thank you for joining us this morning. And
this
put
was
you back.
awesome.
Thank you, and we'll put you back in the green room. Don't go anywhere. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning and learning how peace can morph, can change, transform, and as we evolve and elevate, our definitions of peace can change. Thank you, and we will see you next week.